Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we are going to make the objects to rotate around the character. So let's get started. You might have seen the objects rotate around the character in any other games or movies. For example, in Final Fantasy 15, Shang-Chi, Genshin Impact, and Honkai Star Rail. By the end of this tutorial, your result might be something similar like this. See the objects rotating around the characters, and no matter how I rotate the characters or how I move it, it doesn't affect the object, and it still keeps rotating just like this. Okay, so for example, if I go to the right or the left, forward or backwards, and the object doesn't rotation doesn't get affected and still like keep rotating around make the characters act as a center. So just now I used mask as demonstration, and this time I'm using sword as demonstration or weapons, and it looks like this. Although the object is different, but the logic is still the same, and you has also realized that the numbers of the objects is different. Just now the masks appeared as 3 masks, and this time there are 7 swords in total. So in this tutorial, there's one more thing we also can learn it is that not just only making the objects rotate around the characters, but we also can increase or decrease or adding some the numbers of the objects that you want to rotate around the characters. So what do you need for this tutorial? Actually, it's not compulsory to have anything for this project, but for better result, I'll use this mask model as the object in this tutorial. If you want to use any objects like weapons or sword, well, that's perfectly fine as well. And I will put the link for the mask model in the description below. So in this newly created project, I've already imported the mask models over here. Yep, in this folder here. As for the characters that I'm going to use it for this tutorial, as usual, I'm using this third-person characters. So open it up. As for the input button, I'm using the button 1. And it's over here. Or you can just go to project settings, input, adding the action mappings over here for the input button, but I'm not going to use it for this tutorial because this button 1 over here is already more than enough. So the next thing is to create the feature itself. Since the code is so long, we are going to use the functions over here. So let's create a functions here and name it as summon objects. As for the input over here, we need 3 variables in total. So create 3 variables over here. The first one is for the vector, second is float, the third one is integer. As for the vectors, I just name it as center. The second one is radius. And the third one is object number. Alright. And first compile and save. Wait, now the reason why I named this the center for the vector variable is because that the character itself is served as a center for the rotating objects. Okay, and the next thing is the radius itself. But why do I name it as radius for the float variable over here? It's because that I'm using this logic for the features, the polar coordinates. So why is polar coordinates written over here? Geographical positioning makes use of the angle from the reference axis to a case-specific point on the Earth. It looks like this. So imagine that the center over here is where the character is, and the circles around here is over here. Is like act as the okay, I just call it as a pathway. The pathway for the rotating objects rotating around the character itself, and that's and as you can see that it's more or less similar to how we calculate the circles. So like how we learned it back in high school or during maths class. And that's the reason why we need the radius over here. So, and also one more thing is that also need to take note of is this part. It's over here. So how to convert polar coordinates into Cartesian coordinates, this part itself. So imagine that the position 0, 0 over here, the x, y, 0, 0 over here is where the character is, and the dot point over here is where the some object itself is over here. So imagine that you want to summon multiple numbers of objects like 5 or 6 or 7, whatever numbers that you want to summon it. So the angles will get affected itself. So that's the reason why we need the radius for the position x or the position y of the object, not z. Alright, so the next thing that to explain the object number itself, okay, although I would just repeat myself that is for the calculating, okay, it's not actually calculating, is to determine the number of the object that you want to summon. But there's another purpose for the object number is to calculate the angle for the summoned object itself. Okay, so what does it mean? It might sounds a bit confused, but this is how it goes. So as you go and as you can see that this formula is like to calculate this the circle itself, but for the radius it already have this other purpose, so we just don't need this. As for the 2 pi is so that's why it's left for 2 pi. So it's actually we need to divide the numbers of the objects number itself. Okay, I just call it as obj number. And the real reason why we need to use this formula is actually we need to calculate the angle. Angle for the sum object itself. But what does it mean? Try to imagine that if you want to summon 3 objects over here, the some pattern should be something like this. It's like a triangle shape itself. The angles will be a bit huge. But what if I just want to summon 4 objects itself? It may look like this. So the more objects that you want to summon, the angles will become smaller and smaller and smaller. So like say it's like 5, as you can see that the angles will become more and more smaller. So imagine that you want to summon like 8 objects. It looks like this. So this is the reason. There's another reason why we need object number for the variable itself. Okay, so let's get back to the project here, and we need to create the formulas over here. So just go to type pi, scroll up. Alright, it's over here. It's under the category TRIG get pi. Well, pi is this pi. And go back here and multiply by 2. And we also need to divide it by the object number itself. Although we can just directly connect it from here, but object number is we're gonna use object number for other things, so I'm not really highly recommend for doing that, or else the code will be very messy. So how do we do it? Actually, since we already created the variable over here for the object number, we just type it object number and connect it. As for the variables for the angle for the summon object, well, we can just go to the local variables here. It's under float and name it as angle. Okay, summon objects angle. Go to set. connect with it over here. And now we also need to create a loop for the numbers of the object. So we need to go for a loop. Yeah, under flow control here, not that with break. Okay, so copy this variables here. And there's one more thing. As you can see that the first index is written over here like 0. You always remember that in programming that the first object X will always start from 0, not 1. So that's the reason why that as for the last index over here, we need to minus by 1. And this how it goes. And the next thing is, okay, now we have already completed the angles for the summon object, as well as we also created the calculating the numbers of the object that we want to spawn it or summon it. And next thing is obviously is go to spawn actor from class. Okay, so we also need to split it up. I think this should be alright. Okay, so the next thing is we need to use the two formulas that I've just mentioned it to calculate the x position and the y position. As you can see that is the radius multiplied by cos and the angle itself, which we have already just created. I mean for the angle part, not the formula, the angle. So x is for cos and y is for sine. So go back here. So how do we do it? Wait, first thing first, we also need to we need to drag using the center to calculate it from there. Center get center. And we also need to break vectors. Okay. Oh, we just. Oh no, I think we just do it one by one. Also need to split it up. Well, we don't need to care about the rotation scale, so don't worry about it. And the next thing is radius. And multiply. Since it is for the x position, so we'll also need to add up here. So over here, yeah. And next is connect with the location x. So okay, so we already have the radius, we have the centers of the center itself, and the next thing is we need to drag this sum of objects angle here. I mean the angles that we have just rated, and multiply by cos. Right. So as you can see that there are two cos over here. One is for the degrees, one is for the radians. Since we are focusing on the radius itself, not the degrees itself, so it's just choose the one over here. Always choose the radius, and then connect it with this one. Okay. So the next thing is over here. This part is for the for connecting with the object itself. So we just go to drag index over here, and here we go. And the next thing is for the y position. So it's more or less the same. We just first need to copy here and paste it here. So what's the difference is since it's a y position, so we need to put it connect with the y instead. It's not no longer cos, it's sine, radians, and then connect with location y. And here, I think I just need to give some space over here. The pin over here, okay, and connect with over here. As for the Z location Z, since we are not going to add any kinds of formula here, but there's one thing that we need to do is copy the center and break vectors only. and use Z, just connect with a Z and add some comment here. Okay, it's a bit messy here. I just need to give me some time to arrange it. Then this should be fine. Okay, just simply copy the formula over here just for a reminder. Okay. As for over here, we just more or less the same. Just set here cost. Yeah, I think this should be it. Well, I think it's a good time for you to follow what I've done over here. So you can just pause the video here temporarily and check if there's anything that you have connect wrong or wrote wrong before I continue. Alright, welcome back. So after you wrote all, I mean, all we wrote all this stuff, but here's one thing that I think you guys have already realized the problem that the moment when we compile it, there's an arrow sign over here, but that's completely fine because since we do not have any spawn actors over here. So how do we do it? Just need to include the actor blueprints over here. So just go to content drawer and create a new um, blueprints over here. Go to actors. Since I'm using the mask for these summon objects over here, so just call it as mask and open it up. Let's say as for the adding this mesh over here, we just can use using the white fox mask over here. Just drag it to the viewport. Well, and this is how it goes. Okay. As for the name, I just call it as SM mask. Alright, compile and save. Okay, just don't close up the blueprint mask over here because we need something to do with it. So after that, wait, okay, over here, just simple. Okay, there are two ways to put it. Either you just search for the mask blueprint here, or you can just go over here, browsers here, which highlight the blueprint class over here, and just press the one on the left, this arrow button here. Compile and save, and there should be no problem with it. So let's test whether it works or not. But before that, we need to go to event graph, drag the functions over here, and go to press over here. Okay, I think that because I don't want to keep pressing the button and keep spawning the object, so I just need for do once over here, and this is how it goes. So the moment when I press the button, it only just spawn once. As for the center is just using the get actor location over here. As for the radius, I recommend it 100 because I don't want these some objects get way too near to the character itself. As for the object numbers, as for testing purpose, I just type 4. 4 should be okay. Compile and save, and let's test it out. And I press 1. Yeah, it works fine. Since there are 4 masks already spawned in the levels, and there's the one problem. Although I already spawned the mask itself, but the masks these masks do not follow me where I go. It just mainly just stay over there. So how do we do that? Go to some objects function over here. We need this summon mask, I mean the BP mask over here to follow where the character goes. So we need to attach it. So we just go to attach actor to component. And here's another problem is that we do not have the parents components here. Although you might think that using the components over here, like using the mesh itself, compile and save. Oops. Oh, remember, I forgot that we need to using the keep world. Set everything to keep world, not keep relative, or else it's gonna spawn to somewhere else. I played it. As you can see that although the masks already spawned, but no matter you can see that there's a one biggest problem here is that no matter how I move, how I rotate it, the mask will also rotate as well, and this is not the results that we want because we want the mask to be independent for the characters itself. Okay, what I mean is independent is that if I turn right, just look at it, the mask will also turn as well, and this is not what I wanted. So how do I fix it? It's pretty simple. Okay, before we do that, I think I forgot to disable the collision of the mask itself, or else if we don't disable it, it will look like this. The spring arm will collide with the mask itself. I mean the mask collision. So we just go ahead and disable it. See, the collision preset is under block or dynamic. Just set it to no collision, compile and save. And how do we fix okay, back to where we need to do it is how do we fix this part. So we clearly mesh component is not to set for the parents. So to fix this is actually easy. We just use the spring arm component, not the one that's for the camera itself. We just need to create another new spring arm so spring arm, wait, not under here, capsule is fine. Okay, I think the location should be alright. And then one more thing is that we need to disable all this inherit pitch yaw on roll. Okay, compile and drop. Okay, before that I just name it as spring arm summon objects. Drag here, parent it, compile and save. So we play, summon it. Yep, as you can see, no matter how I turn, move, I mean rotate, or move right, move left, forward or backwards, the bus doesn't rotate at all. It's like although it stick to the characters over here, but it doesn't. It's more act like independently. Alright. The next thing that I need to explain is that why do I need to disable the inherit pitch, yaw, and roll? It's because that okay, let's say that you want to enable everything, compile, save. Okay, let's spawn the characters. I mean the mask itself. If I move on the one on the right, as you can see that the problem is like no matter how I move it, the mask also move as well. I rotate where the character rotates it, and this is not what I wanted. And there's one more mistake that I think I've just realized is that let's say if I move over here, as you can see is that the mask just move away from the character. It's because that I think I've apologized that I forgot to disable the collision test for the spring arm component itself. So let's go back and fix it up. But first thing first, we need to disable all these three things and also disable the do collision test over here. Compile and save and play it. So press 1. Okay, let's move over here. Yep. Look, it works fine now. Okay, I think that's pretty much for the first part of the tutorial. And the next part, we are going to work on the blueprint mask itself to make it to rotate around the characters. I think that's pretty much for it. I'll see you in the next one.